Welcome back to today's episode of the MindSpa podcast. Today, we are talking about overwhelm and emotional capacity. So the topic that we really want to dive into is basically how a lot of people are expressing constant feelings of overwhelm these days. And I think it's an important topic to talk about because how frequently, at least from my perspective, when people are telling me they feel like there's something wrong with them, that they're feeling overwhelmed. But my experience, because I'm talking to everybody saying the same thing, I'm like, it's almost feeling normal at this point. There's not that it's actually not a sign necessarily that you're not coping well. It's potentially more of a sign that the environment is.
I think that's what we're seeing a lot of the capacity that we're having where it's decreasing, and we're finding that what we perhaps were able to tolerate at some point in time is starting to feel a lot heavier than it is currently. And I think it's an important piece to keep in mind when it comes to how we function, right? I see this all the time in my clients where you're noticing that it's not so much this moment, right? They might say like, I'm more irritable. I find that I'm snapping more at my spouse or my kids. And it's not so much this moment of your wife saying something or your spouse saying something, but really it's like the accumulation of moments that is causing you to have this reaction. It's that overload that's causing to have a reaction. I think when we don't realize that there is an accumulation that's happening before it's building up, and without addressing that buildup, we have moments where we break down from the overload.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I always think of it, and I always talk about it, is that we have one stress bucket. We don't have a work stress bucket, a family life stress bucket. We just have one.
Yeah.
And overwhelm is the moment that bucket overflows.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency as humans to that recency effect to always blame the most recent thing that happened as to why I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that's when I start to say there's something wrong with me because I just blew up at my partner because he didn't put the recycling out the way I wanted him to. Like, why am I feeling so bothered by that, so upset by it?
Yeah.
It's like, you're not. You're feeling upset about all of the things that are going into the stress bucket. And that was just the moment you realized it was overflowing.
Yeah. And that stress bucket, I like that analogy because that's really how our nervous system functions.
Yeah.
The nervous system doesn't really care how strong we are or how determined we are. It's going to respond to the load.
Yeah.
And if the load is heavy on our nervous system, you're going to see the results of that as well.
Yeah.
You know, we can have as much willpower as we want. We can be as determined as we want to be. But if the load is heavy and it's heavy for a prolonged period of time, we're going to feel that.
Yeah, that's actually a good addition to it, which is it's not just how much you're carrying it, but it's how long you're carrying it for.
Yeah.
Because one of the ways I would talk about it often through COVID was COVID's keeping everybody's bucket a certain percentage full at all times now, right? And so if we can easily forget about those longer term type things like COVID, let me think of other ones. Just, I would say the economy is probably another one right now that is just kind of sitting there in your stress bucket permanently, not permanently there. It may be ebbing and flowing, but it's kind of like it's this constant stressor. And you do want to reflect on how many constant stressors do I have going on right now that I could be minimizing how much weight that is that I'm carrying on it. Because what we also know is people's tendency to go, if I'm not actively thinking or worrying about it, it's not causing me stress. Right? Wouldn't you say lots of people are like, no, that's not stressing me out. I never think about it. And we're like, you should probably be thinking about that.
I think that's probably the challenge where, again, back to the emotional capacity piece, it's like not every overwhelmed person looks overwhelmed. So sometimes it's like, oh, this is fine. I'm riding it out. I'm carrying on. And you might not necessarily notice that this is impacting you or that you're overwhelmed because you may not be projecting that to other people. There might not be the insight on yourself. But then again, when that prolonged load happens, it shows up in different ways, whether it's through your irritability, eating habits, or other maladaptive habits. Like
your scrolling habits.
You're scrolling, the doom scrolling late at night. Like your attendance and punctuality, like it shows up in different ways, you know. I think sometimes we have this understanding of how it looks when we're overwhelmed or how it looks when we've reached our capacity, but it might not look that way for everybody.
Yeah. And I think that very often when we're talking about this, then the next natural conversation goes around self-care or
Right.
how do we become less overwhelmed. And I think that most of the people I talk to feel very overwhelmed by what they have defined as self-care. Because like, I don't have the money to go get a massage or go to
Mhm.
the spa, or I don't have I don't have the money for a yoga pass, or I don't have time to go to yoga every day, or that type of stuff. When
Mhm.
the reality is there's lots of ways to empty stress out of that bucket
Mhm.
that are you do while you're driving to work. You
Yeah.
can do while you're sitting waiting at the grocery store in
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily carve out specific time,
Yeah.
but you have to be thinking about that stress bucket and recognizing, how do I take stress out of that bucket?
Exactly.
If it's fine, let's say it's economic. Do I need to go to my bank and have a discussion? Do I need to talk to a financial planner to reduce some of the economic stress I'm feeling?
Mhm.
Or if I'm having health like issues,
Mhm.
make that doctor's
Mhm.
appointment, follow up with the treatment recommendations and that type of stuff. Because
Mhm.
again, I think people don't always think about, how do I take some of those stressors out of my bucket?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, how that applies to me. I feel like one of the things that I've realized takes things out of my bucket is just being able to say no.
Yeah.
Like, just being able to, because again, you could keep doing it, and you often say, like, just because you could doesn't mean that you should,
Yes.
right? But the idea of, like, sometimes it just means doing less and slowing things down versus,
Absolutely.
like, keeping up with the pace that could become your default, and you're just kinda doing everything and anything.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just looks like being able to say no to certain things and
Yeah.
taking that task or that appointment or that meeting or that event or whatever it is out of your bucket,
Absolutely.
but I find my slowing down is an important way, just as I'm reflecting on this, that's an important way that I've noticed has been helpful just in terms of emptying out my bucket.
Because I think that people will think instead, oh, I'm going to have fun at that event, or I should go. People are going to be upset if I don't go.
Right.
And I feel like I can in the moment.
Right.
And it's very common that in the moment we feel we have the emotional capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very often we don't realize our emotional capacity is going down until it's gone.
Right.
And then we go,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. Which
And again,
happens.
we'll blame it on the very last thing. So you could like go
Mm-hmm.
out, have events all week, and
Mm-hmm.
then you wake up one morning and I'm trying to think of something small. So like maybe it's not small, but your dishwasher breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like losing it. And you're like, I'm
Exactly.
losing it because the dishwasher broke.
But
Like,
it's really,
no.
no, it's not this moment. It's an accumulation of
Yeah.
moments that brought you to this reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I feel like when it comes to improving emotional capacity, I
Mm-hmm.
think self-awareness, like
Mm.
learning how to build self-awareness. How do I know when my emotional capacity is going down?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think if you're not aware, so this is one of the things I've learned about myself. If I've had a really, really stressful day,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm driving home, I want to listen to a stressful podcast. So I'll think about all the different types of podcasts that I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And some are very like motivational and uplifting. And whenever I listen to them, I feel great. And then some of them are like current events. And I'll notice like if I've had a stressful day, my brain is like, you don't want that uplifting
Uh-huh.
podcast. You want the light, you want the and I find it so interesting because when I don't stop and like sometimes I do it.
Yeah.
Like I notice it and I still do it. And I'm like,
Ah,
that's so interesting. But I'm feeling this like overwhelming pull and urge. This is what I want to listen to
okay.
right now. But the times that I go, no, that is
Mhm.
what I want to listen to, but I should probably just listen to this one.
Right.
By the time I get home from work, I come into the house in a very different
Yeah.
emotional state.
Yeah. Because 'Cause you're giving yourself what you actually need, which
Yes.
is, like, the calmness versus, like, meeting yourself where you're at, which is the overwhelm.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's so yeah, I definitely can relate to that on so many levels, where it's, like, even feeling overwhelmed and anxious. It's like, "Hey, do I increase this or do I slow it down?"
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's, like, even in workouts. Do I
Yeah.
more so do, like, a nice stretch or something that's high intensity depending on where I'm at? But I think that's exactly it. So what is it that I'm needing in this moment versus how do I match the energy?
Right.
But I think that's a good indication of the overwhelm is the irritability or the high stress and how those things kind of really highlight and point to the emotional depletion, decrease
Yeah.
in capacity.
Yeah.
But it's not always as clear cut for many of us in terms of how do I even know when I'm at my capacity?
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like we say that a lot, like I don't have the capacity for that, or I don't have the
Yeah.
capacity, but what is a telltale? sign for that.
Well, and I think too, another thought that I had is like, what are all the different things that will interfere with our capacity that will help us also gauge it? Like if our sleep is foundational to emotional resilience.
Yeah.
So if you are not sleeping well, that can explain low like emotional tolerance.
Yeah.
And also hormones.
Mhm.
Hormones play a huge role in
Mhm.
feelings of overwhelm
Mhm.
that I think a lot of people don't realize that could be playing a
Mhm.
role. Because
Mhm.
interestingly, they might be able to say hormones affect my irritability,
Mm.
but not recognize it's actually it's just my general emotional capacity,
Mhm.
which then leads to
Right.
irritability.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, there's a process there. Yeah. So when you find that you do the opposite
Mm-hmm.
instead of matching the energy
Yeah.
versus the moments when you actually match it with like this heavy, intense, stressful podcast, current events, do you
Yeah.
find that it takes you a lot longer to come down once you get home, or do you kind of stay in that? How does the coming down look like?
Well, that's a really good point, and I think my husband is the one who would be able to say, like, he could probably tell. I bet he
Okay.
could if I told him, he'd be able to say with accuracy which one I listened to when I came home,
Okay. Okay.
and it would be my ability to listen to him.
Ah, okay.
If I'm like, I now, because we do have a routine of just, like, watching shows, that's our
Yeah.
thing that we do to wind down at the end of the night, and if he's, like, trying to tell me about his day and I'm like, "Play? Is it can we press play now?" He'll be like, "Oh, right? You have no capacity
Okay. It's like
left today."
tolerance
Yeah.
shows. Okay.
Whereas if I'm like not trying to get the show started right away and I'm like asking
Okay.
him
Engage.
questions,
Yeah.
"Tell me more about the Leafs and
Ah.
their bad playing this year." Right?
All the
He's like
things.
he's like, "Okay, she's got capacity today." So I
Yeah.
would definitely say that ability to connect with
Mhm.
the humans in my life
Mhm.
will be hugely impacted whether
Wow.
I created capacity for myself in my drive home
Yeah.
or I just kept actually putting more stress in that bucket.
Yeah.
Just
That's so
it just
profound.
feels right though,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah.
have to fight the urge. It just feels like the most natural thing to do is to keep
Yeah.
that.
I love that. Because we don't recognize like it's our bucket, but we don't recognize sort of like the ripple effect that it has on everyone else around us when we
Yeah.
don't have the capacity. We kind of just feel like it's our individual experience,
y-
but it shows up in how we interact with our partners and our kids and our loved ones and all those other aspects of things too, right? Like they can
Yeah.
see when we have the capacity, when we're at capacity.
Yeah. And what's really unfortunate about human nature is they're the best ones to be able to inform us. And they're the people we can hear it from the least, which
Yeah,
is unfortunate because I think that those conversations could be really bring you closer together.
for
Hey, I'm
sure.
noticing,
Yeah.
right? You seem to want to go right to the show.
Hmm.
Don't feel like you have a lot of capacity for chatting today. How
Hmm.
was your day?
hmm hmm It's like gently calling it out.
Right. Were
Yeah.
you able to unwind on the drive home?
Do you need a
No.
minute?
Did you listen to that podcast again? Okay,
Uh-huh.
good to know. Good to know.
Just checking.
Right? But if it's met a little bit with like, okay, now we see the pattern, understand. We talk about this a lot is being able to identify our own patterns
Mhm,
because our default mode is
mhm,
not always our best interest.
mhm, mhm.
But it still feels really easy and effortless. And
Yeah,
so
because it's familiar and
it's
it's default and
familiar.
it just becomes the go-to.
Yeah.
And so it does take a level of like awareness and intentionality to shift that gear and to do
Yeah.
the opposite of what just feels so natural
Yeah.
sometimes.
I have a funny analogy that I think of often in these conversations. And it happened when I went and did one of the golf tournaments that we did last year, but I was with Sarah, our amazing
Mhm,
admin. And while she was golfing, she kept hitting the ball into the trees.
mhm,
And I said to her, and she's like, I don't understand why I keep hitting them to the trees. And so I started watching her. And I was like, I can see it in her hips and the way
mhm.
her feet are. I can see exactly why the ball is going.
Uh,
So I say to her, I'm like, I think if you just tilt your hips this way and point your feet this way, try it again. I think it'll go down the middle. She tries it again, goes down the
Look at
middle.
that.
And she goes, but it was so uncomfortable. And I was
Uh,
like, ooh. Well, it could be uncomfortable and you can keep hitting it in the trees, or it can be uncomfortable and you can hit it down the fairway. It seems like
yeah,
you have to make a choice.
yeah.
And that theme sort of comes up a lot in life where it's like I'm in therapy, right?
Yeah.
I understand it's uncomfortable to do it differently. Like for me, it would be uncomfortable to listen to a calming podcast when I am feeling stressed,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to be better off for
Mm-hmm.
it by
Mm-hmm.
doing it that way. I could be comfortable and listen to a anxiety-ridden podcast,
Right?
but it's definitely not in my best interest. So I
Yeah.
think that the message is look at the things that you do that just are because they're comfortable, they're familiar,
Yeah.
and ask yourself, though, what happens after that? Is that
Yeah.
actually something that is going to take stress out of my bucket,
Yeah.
increase my emotional capacity, or is it actually going to continue to drain me?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And that's a difficult place to be, I think, for many folks, right? Just realizing what or how that shift has been impacted them, especially if it's something that's been a default for such a long
Yes.
period of time.
Including
It's
like it could be from your childhood.
exactly. These are
Yeah.
habits that run deep
Yeah.
with deep roots that just kind of become the way that I do things, right?
Mhm.
And we could think of so many examples of how those things show up, whether it's in our relationships or in our workplaces, of just things that we do because it's been that way.
Yeah.
Um, but then recognizing like, but does it cause me to keep hitting into the trees,
Yes.
right? Does it cause me to have the outcome that I'm not looking for or the undesired outcome?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it does take us stepping outside of that comfort zone and doing things a little bit differently,
Yeah.
even as an experiment.
Yeah.
Right? Let's try it and let's see if the results are different. Let's see if I feel different or those around me notice a difference in how I'm reacting and what my capacity looks like. But sometimes shifting out of that default is an important way to create more emotional capacity in us.
Why do you think everybody is so overwhelmed all the time these days? What are your sort of insights?
Yeah. I think that a big part of it is because there truly is a lot that's happening at
Mhm.
this point. I think that we're spread thin.
Mhm.
I think that especially as individuals, working individuals, whether it's as a father, as a mother, there's so many
Mhm.
demands that are being pulled on individuals in so many different directions. And I think without being able to have, whether it's the supports or boundaries or things of that nature, we're giving a lot more of ourselves than we're actually putting into ourselves.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we're running on empty
Mhm.
because we're pouring into so many different things around us without the moments of self-care. And like you said,
Yeah.
self-care doesn't have to be going and getting a massage or a manicure. It could just be slowing down or saying no.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that the self-care is as much of a priority as it perhaps has been in
Yeah.
generations before us.
Mhm.
And so that I think is impacting our capacity because we're doing a lot more with less resources
Yeah.
than others have had to do, is something that I've noticed and that I would probably say is contributing to our capacity. And then the ability to just kind of push through, which is
Mhm.
kind of like the name of the game. And a lot of times, right?
Right.
It's like I can. And so I'll just continue to carry this load. But
And
then we
it's
look at
rewarded and
exactly.
encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah. It's reward to respond to emails at like 11 o'clock at night or to
Yeah.
overwork and all those type of things. But sometimes we don't realize the cost of things until afterwards when we've paid the cost of it.
Yeah.
Right. So history kind of constantly repeats itself. And so I would say that there's a combination of things that are
Yeah.
impacting.
When I think of it, I think of how expectations have changed over time
Mm-hmm.
because let's go with starting with the expectation that life now requires two working parents. Whereas before, the expectation was that one person worked and one person took care of the home, took care of the kids. And over time, that evolved to the expectation is there's going to be two working parents.
Mm-hmm.
If we just take that difference and why are we going to feel more overwhelmed when that dynamic shifts?
Mm-hmm.
There's very clear answers as
Mm-hmm.
to why we're going to, in modern day life, feel
Mm-hmm.
way more overwhelmed than we
Mm-hmm.
used to. Because you have two people who have to work outside of the home 40 hours a week. And now everything it takes to care for children or a household or both, you both now need to fit in with the remaining hours of the
Right.
week, also hoping that you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night
Exactly.
every single night,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So just that alone, I
Yeah.
think changes our capacity. But
Mm-hmm.
then even those expectations of what I'm going to do as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
I think have changed a lot over time. If I think about how much I've played with my kids. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie and say that I was that mom that was playing Barbies with my
Mhm.
kids. I could never bring myself to do that. That's why I had 4 kids. They could play with each other.
Mhm.
But like card games
Mhm.
and like taking them to the trampoline park or
Mhm.
Fun Haven or something like that on the weekends, and taking them to the beach and
Mhm.
to the like just different
Right, like
get
out.
experiences. And if I think back to like the way that I grew up, I was off doing my own thing a lot of the
Right.
times. I had to entertain myself, had to
Yeah.
figure things out
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
without the aid of like a cell phone and all
Right.
those types of things.
Yeah.
And again, parenting has evolved that this expectation on parents
Yeah.
is to be constantly doing stuff with their kids, for their kids,
Mhm.
all of this, even the independence, the encouragement of independence of kids
Mhm.
isn't what it used to be. I actually
Mhm.
feel like a bad parent because of how early my kids started making their own lunches.
Mhm.
I'm like, I feel like I'm neglectful because no one else, or make your own breakfast.
Mhm.
I'll hear parents tell me how old their kids are that they're still doing all of that. And I'm like, no wonder you're overwhelmed. That's a lot of work
It's a
for
lot
a
of
very
responsibility.
long time. That's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility. But there is this new, like, do you get that? Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, my kids are a lot younger,
Yeah.
so I
Well, yeah.
definitely I'm definitely in
But do
there.
you see it
Otherwise,
around you where
it's just
people
in
like
clients
you
and stuff.
well, yeah, in clients or even, like, friends with older kids that you're like, "You're still doing that
For
for them?"
sure.
Yeah, okay.
Even things like laundry and stuff,
Yeah.
right? I'm like
I make my kids do their laundry. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm like, "I think they can do that. I think they can press start on the machine."
Right.
I think that's true. I think our generation became independent a lot quicker
Yeah.
than the current generation where there's a lot more hand-holding. I get that the world has changed.
Yeah.
I get that it perhaps doesn't feel as safe as it once did for many people. And so those factors are taken into consideration. But I definitely feel like there's a level of like, you have to kind of be more intentional now with parenting. Of like, I need to actually prioritize independence and teaching
Right.
them independence.
Yeah.
Otherwise, again, the default, the societal default could be just like doing everything for them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what wins a trophy type of thing. But no, I could definitely see that around for sure, where it's not the independence of just even like we would go to the store on our own or just like go
Yeah.
around, but it's like, nope, that's not happening.
No.
It's a lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I think about if we extend that now to also, you know, the way that the I guess how old people were when their parents became elderly. Like again, previous generations had kids younger, which meant
Mm-hmm.
by the time their parents needed support, their kids were adults. But now you're seeing more
Mm.
parents who have kids that they're still parenting quite a
Yeah.
bit. And then they have
These
elderly
parents.
parents
Yeah.
that they have to support and they have to be there for, yet again, still working 2 full-time jobs, still needing to take care of a house.
Yeah.
And that's just like that's just almost like I don't wanna say the default, but that's just like that's before you factor in all the individual things
Yeah.
people could be
That's like before the
dealing with.
activities and
Yeah.
the gymnastics drop offs and the all the extracurricular things. Like that's just
Yeah.
like the bare minimum
Yeah.
of things, right? And so when you look at just the bare minimum, the idea or the concept rather of like emotional capacity and
Yeah.
being depleted, I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
We're spread thin.
We're spread very, very thin. And then interestingly from that the same thing in the workplace, what
Mhm.
we're seeing is also this movement towards how do we get as much work as humanly possible done by as few humans as
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're here in Ottawa. There is big federal government job cuts happening.
Yeah.
So we're seeing two huge stressors. One is my job secure,
Right.
which is terrifying if it is not,
Yeah.
or I'm going to be the one around after everybody
Mm.
leaves. And what expectations are there going to be of me now to perform at a much higher level
Mhm.
than I was before? And I was already, some
Mhm.
people were already drowning
Yeah.
before that happened.
Yeah.
And again, they're looking at themselves like, what's wrong with me that I can't
Yeah.
do two people's
Yeah.
jobs?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, nothing's wrong with you. It's the
Yeah.
expectation that you're supposed to be able to do two people's jobs that's kind of broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the idea of like the stress and the overwhelm has become so familiar and
Yeah.
normalized that the opposite, whether that's like peace or balance,
Yeah.
kind of feels unfamiliar.
Yeah.
it's almost like, wait, what? You're not going to overextend yourself? Like, why? Why aren't you going to do that person's job, including your job, right? Like that just kind of feels like a foreign concept to folks. But because we've normalized the idea of being overwhelmed and being stressed out. And I think that's where we get into this place of burnout very quickly, right? Like we do need a level of stress to be optimized in what we're doing, but that can very quickly turn to burnout if that's continued for a prolonged period of time.
It's funny because you said the word like that balance. And I think of that bigger term of like work-life balance. And back to expectations. I feel like there's this like dichotomy between we are expected to work like crazy and that burnout's the normal or like pushing really hard is normal, but we're also supposed to be like trying to get work-life balance. And again, this expectation, like you just need to figure out the right balance, then you'll be okay. But very often when I'm hearing people describe that, I'm like, it's not actually a balance issue in the sense that you are balancing it as best you can. This is what the balance this is the balance. This is it. Right? There's nothing actually to be striving more towards, but you think that balance is supposed to feel a certain way, which is like peaceful and relaxed and that type of stuff. And it's like, you have to give up your expectations of being the perfect perfect husband, perfect father, perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect partner, perfect parent, employee. One of the things that I often recommend to people is presence in the moment and try to do your best with whatever you're doing in that moment is going to get you much farther than trying to actually look at it from a balance perspective, because it is like, it's just a losing game to try to create this perfect work-life balance. Instead, it's like when you're at work, be the best worker that you can be. Stop trying to be a good mom or dad or friend or I don't know,
whatever
wife,
it is.
daughter,
Like,
caretaker. Like you're at work, give your best that you can at work, leave everything else. And I mean, of course, like I'm saying within reason, the stuff that you have control over, because lots of people, they have control over it. I'm saying if your kid's school calls, definitely pick up the phone, right? But it's like there's people that are preoccupied with trying to be everything to everyone in every moment. And if we actually focus more on the moment and say, right now, I'm going to be the best worker that I can be. And then on my lunch break, I'm going to be the best friend to myself that I can be, which I'm going to take my break. And I'm going to get out into fresh air if I can. I'm going to eat something. I'm going to drink something. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Like I'm going to listen to my body and what it needs. I'm not going to work through it. I'm not going to take care of stuff at home while I'm here and that type of stuff. It's like I need some of that time for myself. But then when I'm at home, leave work at work.
It's the idea of really just doing one thing mindfully versus mindlessly doing things, right? Like being here but not being here, or being with our kids but really we're, absorbed with thoughts about work-related items, or we're at work and we're thinking about the kids. Like, let's be present and be in the moment mindfully. Because then we're able to give more of ourselves, right? We're not, and I think we often talk about the capacity piece kind of in line with focus and concentration. And it's hard to be able to have those aspects of things when you're actually not present. Like there is no retaining information when you're not mentally present in whatever it is that you're doing task-wise, if your mind is somewhere else. And so the capacity can show up not just with irritability, but even with like concentration and with focus, because truly your mind isn't here. Despite you being here physically.
Which is such an opposite view of like balance versus like singular focus. Right. And that's why I don't like every time I hear work-life balance, I'm like, everybody's chasing this dream, this imaginary version of balance that's apparently attainable if I just do the right things. And it's like, no, because honestly, if you and I were to look at like everything a book would tell us about each thing to be perfect at, like to be a perfect wife, to be a perfect mom, to be a perfect business owner, to be a perfect therapist, all those things, there is not enough time in a day to accomplish being all that.
There's not enough time in a day. I don't know who said it, but it's like, if you can show me someone who does have that balance and everything, then I'll show you a liar. Right? Because it's like, there's no way. It just isn't possible.
It's imaginary. But I think that some people figure out what works for them And it is just that piece of the imbalance. I remember too, I had this like thought in my mind of an analogy is like everybody wants their life to be like a perfectly organized filing cabinet, right? Where every file is labeled and the right things are in there and everything fits in the filing cabinet. There's nothing sticking out. You can close the filing cabinet. You can open it, you find everything you need.
That'd be lovely. Right.
But that's such an unrealistic way to go through life. And the attempt to try to accomplish that will actually make your life significantly harder than just acknowledging mine doesn't close. Or sometimes it closes and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it gets jammed at times.
Yeah.
And it is
things
what
get
it is.
misfiled.
Yeah.
Mislabeled.
There's like an acceptance that has to happen with all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You think accepting, I love that acceptance versus expectation. How do I accept the reality as it is and have my expectations in alignment with reality? Another one of my favorites is expectation minus reality equals disappointment, unless reality and expectations match.
Yeah.
We have to start there. It's a very good starting point. Bring your expectations into alignment with reality.
Yeah.
When we start there, there's so much room to improve things from that spot.
Yeah.
But if we start with, this is what I want it to look like, how do I get there? And that, what I want it to look like, is hugely made up.
It's not even reflective of the current reality. At least take from the current reality and start there and creating what those expectations are, because then you have a better chance of it actually aligning. But if it's so far removed from the reality, you're really setting yourself up for disappointment and for being overextended on so many ways. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, like, for the listener, how do you know when you need to get help from a mental health professional when you're feeling like overwhelmed, overburdened, low emotional capacity?
I think noticing certain things like irritability would be an important start and step, whether it's you noticing it in yourself or other people pointing it out for you. I think also just being able to be aware of what the load currently looks like and how that's showing up for you. And do you find that you're carrying a heavy load? And so back to the awareness piece, right? Just being aware of what is in your bucket. Are there parts of it that I can take out from the bucket? I would say the other piece is recognizing, like, am I neglecting certain parts of myself that perhaps I once prioritized and are no longer a priority for me, which impacts my tolerance and my capacity as well, right? And so I think those would be three important things: is noticing your irritability, noticing what aspects of yourself you can actually start to pour into to create more space and more capacity. And again, I would say tolerance too, right? Do I find that I'm less tolerant, which kind of goes hand in hand with the irritability piece. But I think those are important things to highlight and to point us in the direction of maybe getting some professional supports in place to manage our capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too, I think a good sign that you might need some support is you've tried everything you can think of to improve the situation, right? So it's like, I've done my research, I've changed some behaviors, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
all things that you can do.
I'm doing all the things I feel like I can do, yet it's not shifting.
Right.
Because for me, what might be happening there, it's because what we know is there's sort of different layers of things that might need to change for someone in order to experience an emotional change. Sometimes it's a behavior, but sometimes it's actually your belief system, right? So what I notice is sometimes if people have core belief of I'm not enough, then that plays out in this scenario of feeling overwhelmed because I'm constantly trying to prove I am enough. And as soon as I take my foot off the gas, maybe I change my behavior in order to improve my emotional capacity, but I'm sitting there beating myself up, self-criticizing, feeling guilty, feeling shame. Your emotional capacity is not going to go up. And you're going to be confused. You're going to be like, but I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. And I stopped listening to that podcast. Right? Why am I not feeling better?
Right.
It's like, oh, but if you are, really hard on yourself, and beliefs is something that I think is incredibly difficult to change by yourself.
Yeah.
They can be really hard to even identify because they're so deeply.
They're core beliefs.
You believe that they're universal. Usually our core beliefs, we believe are universal core beliefs, and we find other people that don't have the same one. Wait, is that an option? And they're like, yes, you being enough is an option. Actually,
I am worthy. I am lovable.
Yeah. So I think That's what I feel like I see a lot, is that it's boiling down actually to core beliefs. And that takes a lot of work actually.
Yeah, I can see that, especially when it's reinforced or rewarded.
Yes.
Right? It's like, yeah, see, I told you I'm good enough. I just got this reward. I just got acknowledged. And that just reinforces those core beliefs too, which makes it even that much harder for you to shift into now, but what is it costing me?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's often the overlooked piece of all of this, is the impact that it's having when we overextend our capacities continuously.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we did a whole topic on burnout before, but I think it's what's contributing to the high rates of current burnout in modern day society. And I unfortunately, I just don't see it. I don't see it on a path of improvement. I don't even know what it would take. There was a slight moment in time. Do you remember quiet quitting, which was like a whole topic
Just like, yeah,
right?
I remember that.
And that was kind of like I am going to do my job, but I'm going to stop overextending myself at my job, which interestingly got I would say a horrible title of quiet quitting. That's what at least I understood it to mean, had to do with like, I'm
the
not
efforts are decreasing.
Yeah.
The initiatives, or even like taking initiatives or ambitions, are just bare minimum.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it's such a hard thing because on the one hand, that's good if the expectations in your role are too high. But if the expectations are actually like,
they're already low.
If they're already low, or they're
How
like
low can we go?
10-year quiet quitting, that's probably not a good idea. But I feel like there was one movement towards like not overextending ourselves, not going towards burnout, not rewarding burnout. But I don't think it's stuck. I don't feel like it's stuck.
I don't think we're there. I think especially with like the work from home pieces, like I think that there's so much reward of just like doing so much and just going above and beyond. Like it's not, I don't think we're there yet. And so it really comes down to you identifying it in yourself and you being your own advocate and realizing like, I need to make sure that I'm managing what's in my bucket. Otherwise, no one's going to do that for you.
No one is going to do it for me. Yeah. So we're hoping that everyone listening today can hear that it is normal to feel overwhelmed right now. It is a function of a lot of what's going on in the world and in society and in culture and expectations. And that if you are done all the things that you feel like you can do, but you're still feeling overwhelmed, and that can be professional help like in therapy, but it can be professional help too of talking to your doctor, because you do want to also understand the medical reasons why. I don't want to get into that, like step out of our lane into the health reasons why, but that's another big category as to why people might be feeling overwhelmed as well. And so it is a good enough, overwhelm is a perfectly good enough reason to go to therapy, because we can get a lot of really good work done that will be more longer lasting if it is like based in core beliefs of I need to keep performing in order to be loved and cared about and that type of stuff. And worthy.
This is helpful. So hopefully you found this helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thank you for tuning in.